Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Outsmart Overeating podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Hooper, and today I'm super excited to announce I have an episode that we've been really looking forward to today. We're going to be talking about weight loss medication. And I think most of you probably identify that as Ozempic. And what I've asked is have some of my friends, some of our clients from the past come onto the show today and share their experience on the weight loss medication. So let's go ahead and just start, ladies, by having each one of you introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your location, maybe your age, just provide some context into who you are, maybe briefly touch on some of your challenges and why you decided to go on the medication in the first place. So, Melissa, let's go ahead and start with you first.
Sure. Hi. So good to see you guys. So I'm Melissa. I live in Tampa, Florida. I'm 47. I started on compounded semaglutide last summer, and it was born out of coming off the pill, getting lab work done, looking at things, looking at hormones. And my provider at the time, who is fabulous, just suggested this, and I was so against it. Nope. I am not doing that. I don't need that. I have my Leslie and Steph toolkit. Nope. But then when she's also started talking about the other health benefits from GLP-1s, I was like, all right, let's continue the conversation. So I decided to do it. Speed up the story here. I actually stopped in the fall just because the compounding pharmacy where she got her product just had too much shortage. And so there was a gap in my dosage. So I'm like, I don't want to have to go all the way back. So I stopped. Gained weight back, and then, very long story short, started on compounded semaglutide again in late December, early January. Had some success, and just recently, in the last couple of weeks, thankfully, due to insurance, I was able to switch to tirzepatide, the branded Zepbound, and so far, so good. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Okay.
Macarena. Let's go ahead and move on to you then.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Macarena, Maca for short. I know it can be a hard name to pronounce. I'm 30 years old, and I live in Santiago, Chile. So it's winter here, whether all ladies are in short blouses or everything. I am actually on Ozempic, like the real Ozempic thing. And same as Melissa, I didn't want to use it at first. I was very resistant to it, but my blood exams, my blood tests were not good regarding insulin resistance. I was also gaining weight, although I was working on not snacking, working out 5 days a week and everything. And my weight was just going up. Turns out I also had some PCOS symptoms that my doctor said that might be related to the weight gain. And all of that was in the context of breaking up a 5-year relationship. So you ladies can catch up. So my boyfriend and I broke up. I started a new job after I got out of university, and life was getting like real. I decided it's not me. My doctor suggested it. I was very resistant at first, but after thinking about it like for a month or two, I decided to try the medication, because what made me think for real of considering Ozempic was the fact that being overweight is also like a risk factor for developing other diseases, and things were not working out for me naturally. So I decided to ask for help in that sense. And I asked my doctor, she said yes. And I started the medication on mid-March.
Okay, so just as recent March then, sounds.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
okay.
This March.
Yeah, so you've been on it for just a few months then at this point in time. And then Melissa, you've been off and on a little bit based off of your history and availability, it sounds like, which does appear to have been a bigger problem in 2023. I haven't heard too much about running into shortage issues in 2024, but I am curious about that because that did come up quite a bit in 2023. And I'm wondering if we've hit a baseline now where the medication is mostly in stock. There's not as many shortages as there has been in the past. Melissa, is that your understanding? Just to really
especially for compounded, as far as I know, no issues there, at least not in my area, not with the providers I've worked with. For the prescription, I know for Zepbound, my dose, the starting dose, no issue. I think the next one up is a bit more limited. And then after that, you're good. So I think it just depends, but I can't speak to any other areas or countries.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that. And Macarena, thanks for sharing a little bit about your background as well. Sherry, lady, you are up.
I'm coming to you from sunny Georgia in the parking lot of a baseball game. I live in Virginia, 55 years old. I feel like I've had, I don't know, close to 50 years of dieting history. So I know we've all been in that category. I've listened to your stories and I've had lots of conversations with at least 3 of you. Melissa, maybe not as much with you, but I'm interested to hear your story too. I started Mounjaro in October of 2022. I went through all of those dosages until I got to a point where they were no longer available. So I worked my way up on a month to 2 month basis based on blood work and doctor recommendation until I got to the dose of 15 milligrams. Then it was unavailable. So they dropped me down a couple doses and then that wasn't available. So I switched to, I was off for about 8 weeks. I switched to compounded semaglutide, which was ineffective. So obviously I need the GLP-1 that has multiple medications, not just one. So something in my system does not respond to just branded Ozempic from semaglutide. I switched to compounded tirzepatide. I did that for a month, and then Mounjaro, or I'm now on Zepbound, was back available. So I have now gone back through the system and am back up at the maximum dosage. I know that's not always recommended, but in my case, I titrated very easily. I haven't had any side effects. I am the longest on here, the oldest, and have been doing this the longest. So what is that? About 1 year and 8 months with a couple of months off in between. What I found was during that time frame, I feel like I do have the tools. I have a college education in health and physical education, and I have graduate work in exercise science. I have read all the books and done all the diets. And I kept feeling like, even I spent 2 years talking to the ladies on the phone saying, okay, I know there's a missing piece for me. I feel like I have the knowledge. I feel like I'm applying that knowledge. I need the psychological part, which was very helpful. So I was like, okay. But then I still was at a point where I was like, okay, something is still wrong. I felt like a moral failure. Something was the matter that I could not. I was like, if you could just change how you think. Okay, I'm changing how I think. So something is wrong with how I think. I'm broken. I realized when I started taking this medication that it took away some of those things that I guess biologically I am inclined to do that I didn't realize I was inclined to do. So it has really helped that focus. So the tools I learned through your program, I am now able to implement without the chatter that I was fighting so hard against. I am still a very slow loser, but that's okay because I feel so fantastic. I have a mental clarity that I wasn't able to attain just with doing it other ways, rather that I have absolutely gone away. There's no traditional dieting in my life. I learned that a few years ago. I know that is a hole I do not want to dig myself into and get stuck in again. But I also know for me that it wasn't a moral failing, that I couldn't do it that way. It has made a huge difference in my life. When I stopped taking it for those 8 weeks, I was like, oh, I've already got this. I have figured it out. I have the mental side. I have the physical side. I know what I'm doing. I rapidly gained weight doing nothing different. I was eating the same. I was exercising the same. And that was a light bulb moment for me. So I was like, oh, now I get it. I need that medication piece to finish, to make my system complete. And I will say there was a lot of for me, a lot of shame in that, a lot of why can't I do it if someone else can? So I've had to do the mental work on that, saying that I'm not a failure. I just needed another piece, and this happens to be what I have. So I'm a big advocate now, saying if you need that piece, please take it without feeling that guilt or shame. You have the guilt or shame related to living in a bigger body, and you have the guilt or shame of all the things that society places on us. Getting a little older, my hair has this beautiful silver streaks through there, and things that society fights us against that maybe we've grown up with. So this has been a big game changer for me.
Sherry, we don't shame people when they want to go on blood pressure medication, when they need to take a statin, they need to do all these other medications. But this one seems to be like, oh, you can't do that. You're lazy, you're whatever, you're this, just do this, just eat less, just do more. And it's, hang on a second. What if I had to go on this other stuff? You wouldn't say anything about that. So yeah, very interesting point.
And I completely agree with you. I haven't shared this story because a couple of the first people that I did share it with, I got that pushback. And I thought, I don't need that. I need to feel free to try this. And I still don't share it often, but if somebody asks me a question, then I'm going to be that big advocate that says, wait, if you need this, it is just like that. Here are my reading glasses. I can take them off and then I can't read your small names on the screen. That's not a failure for me. That just happens to be that my eyes aren't working quite as clearly as they should. So I feel like I feel exactly like that. And it is sad that we've evolved into that society, but I think things change all the time, and it takes our voices to say, step out of the box, feel good about yourself, and what it takes, all the steps, all of the puzzle pieces need to be put together. This just happens to be one for me.
Yeah, I appreciate you all bringing up the shame piece. I think because it's been on the market for a while, but it's only really started to develop steam in the last handful of years, and it's new. I don't think that there'll be shame around it long term. I do think it's because it's still a kind of a novel concept. It's much more affordable than having a weight loss surgery, for example. A lot more people are going to be on it. It's going to be normalized. It is more than likely here to stay for the long term. So we will eventually, in my opinion, as a society, get used to it. But what I'm hearing from you all is it's quieted down maybe the food noise, the judgment, the frustration, or like feeling like a failure. So that's one thing that I want to hear a little bit more about. But before I do invite you all to talk a little bit about the food noise, Steph, I want to invite you into the conversation here as well, since we have not yet introduced you and you are hiding out here with us today.
I'm just hanging out in my little corner, just enjoying everybody's conversation here. Listen, we have been here before when it comes to weight loss medications. And I think a lot of the fear and shame, particularly from fitness professionals that tend to project, like, you just need to do all the other things. Even I felt very similarly in the beginning, not just, hey, you should do all the other things, but hey, where are we going with this? Because I know that I was someone who took prescription weight loss drugs when I was an itty bitty teenager, lost a bunch of weight. They took them off the market due to heart problems. And then I regained all my weight and my self-esteem plummeted. And so I had a lot of concern for success, and then failure afterward feels so bad. It feels so bad when you taste success and then it gets ripped out from under you and you just can't catch your breath when it's something that is so deeply connected to our self-worth, like the size of our ass in this culture and the way that people look at us. I understand the skepticism, but as Leslie said, it has been around for a while. It just hasn't been marketed in this way for a long time. And there is a hormonal shift, a hormonal element to this conversation. It's not just an appetite suppressant, but it does work on your insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity systems, and things of that nature. And so I think that people just don't have quite the understanding. And so they compare it to what we've always compared to, ephedrine and fen-phen and all the other drugs that we've all tried and failed at on repeat to lose weight. This is a different category, and I'm really excited about it, but I still tread with caution as the sample size of humans who are on it get larger and larger. We learn more and more. And that's what I'm excited about, is to learn more about how this is affecting people for better or worse. And I think it's exciting. So thank y'all for being vulnerable, being willing to share. You're part of a movement that is so important for people.
Yeah, and just circling back around to the shame piece, I think just by talking about it in this manner is what is going to ultimately shed that. We want to educate our audience and ourselves so we know how to best support our clients moving forward, whether they choose to do it or not, and do it with our eyes wide open. So I'm thrilled to have you all on here to share your personal experiences, because that's going to be the most effective way for us to learn. I want to circle again back to the food noise piece, because one thing that I've read over and over again and have heard is that it really does quiet down all of the maybe food related thoughts. Now, I do think we do a pretty good job of that in Unstuffed, but I imagine that this is like next level. So Melissa, let's just start with you. What is your experience with maybe not having all of the mental chatter about weight loss and food, thinking about lunch when you're eating breakfast kind of thing? Is that kind of minimized for you, not hearing your brain constantly talk in that manner so you can focus on other aspects of your life?
It's definitely reduced. I can't say it's gone. I honestly think part of that is habit. And you get used to thinking a certain way of how you plan your day and what you want. I think that's a piece of it that I still work on, but it is significantly reduced. And I can't say my hunger is gone, because if you're not feeling hunger, you might be on too high of a dose, but you should feel hunger, but it's not as intense. And I can go from, I have my breakfast and I'm not thinking about food at hour 2. It's 4, 5, 6, sometimes ish hours where I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm hungry. I can go eat now. It's that kind of reduction in noise and I guess appetite that's happening for me personally. I will say, and if we want to cover this later, let me know. Just tell me to stop. But I think with the tools that I learned from both of you around body image, habits, all of it, the whole kit and caboodle, allows me to position myself to not have the failure if I ever choose to go off of it. If you don't take this as an opportunity to make the changes you need to make, you probably will gain it back when you're off of it. I don't know what the data shows at this point. I think there is a certain percentage of weight regain, if not all of it necessarily, but you have a greater chance of keeping it off in the long term if you use this as another tool in your toolkit to build the habits, to eat the way that makes you feel good, to get healthy, whatever it is, whatever that looks like for you. That I think is the key point. And so all of a sudden realizing I'm not hungry all the time and I'm not always thinking about food the way I did. Yeah, big help in reaching that goal.
Yeah, I definitely want to come back to the long-term vision and what that looks like for each one of you. Melissa, I read a stat last week that said within 1 year, if somebody is going to come off of it, then 70% weight gain is likely. So like regaining 70%, essentially what you lost within a year is
Which is a lot. But
right?
what I would want to know, and I'm sure they did not cover this in the study, is what were they doing while they were on it to make lasting changes? Were you following the standard American diet, or were you making other changes in addition to that and trying to make nutritious choices for yourself? Were you moving more? Were you doing the brain work, the mental work to get yourself out of where you were before? If they weren't doing that, then that's the stat I was thinking of. Then that doesn't surprise me then. It really doesn't. It's one tool in the toolkit, not the end all be all.
Yeah. Macarena?
Yeah, I think Melissa touches a really important point regarding, I'm very vocal about being on Ozempic with my friends. And I have friends that are using it too. So that's not an issue. But when I have gone out, I don't know, for dinner or whatever with my friends, there are some friends that actually still eat like it's a magical solution. So they just lots of food, because Ozempic reduces a lot how much food you can eat, because it makes you like stomach fuller. They keep on eating a lot of food, and I think they're thinking for the magic pill. Same as my sister, she was on Ozempic too, but she didn't do well. And my hypothesis, and I might be wrong, but is that she kept on eating like she usually does. And that's why she like threw up so much and like why her belly didn't handle it. But because you gotta adapt to it. And my thoughts about it has been like, if I hadn't been unstuffed before and learned the tools that I learned before, dealing with Ozempic would have been completely different for me, because you just gotta like step down and think, make decisions, but with a like a conscious mind. And that's not easy if you're expecting to Ozempic to do the work for you instead of you doing the work and using Ozempic as a tool that aids you.
Yeah, Ozempic isn't a brain transplant. You're still having the same thoughts, the same emotions can surface. And that actually brings up my next question is, now that maybe the food noise has reduced a bit, you might be experiencing or aware of more emotions and more and like, how are you managing that? If the go-to crutch in the past as dieters has been turning to food to help us manage stress, rejection, disappointment, loneliness, boredom, those emotions are still there, but we are not really leaning into the food tool so much anymore. So how is that different for you all, that maybe your brain isn't saying you need to go and, I don't know, have a Snickers bar instead? I guess what I'm trying to understand is those thoughts are still surfacing, those emotions are still surfacing. What are you doing with them now? Sherry, let's go ahead and start with you.
Okay, I'm off. I think they do still surface, but at the same time, it's not. I know that the term food noise seems relatively new in the culture because it's coming to light with these medications. I know I hadn't heard that. And in fact, when it first turned off, I was shocked because I didn't realize that's not how everyone thought. I didn't realize that I was thinking differently. I did recognize that I have 5 children who range in age, and they all look at food and eat differently. I have the children who eat when they're hungry and stop when they're full, and I have children who do not, but I didn't realize that their thinking process was all different, and it is definitely different. So once I realized that I was thinking that way, it was easier with the medication to be able to take those thoughts captive and use the tools that I did learn when I've been through all your programs, all the way back from renaming and then into Masterful after that. So when I realized that not everyone thought that way and I didn't have to fight against who I was, that noise was reduced. So I was actually able to implement some of those. So instead of saying, okay, I need to sit, scroll on my phone and eat as a timeout for myself, I didn't need to do that anymore. I could actually take that time out and maybe do journaling or maybe redirect and do something else. So still handle the thought, what that pressure may be, but it didn't automatically go to food. And I don't think I recognized that until the food noise was reduced. Crossing back to saying your long-term plan, there's always the hope that you will be able to go off of a medication. I like to take nothing if I could, but I also recognize, because I had that time when it was gone, that my body was not yet ready to not have that in my life. And I felt, because I had those tools, that I was eating well and moving more, but I needed that extra piece. So it's a combination. I do think I'm better able to think and approach situations that maybe at one point in time I would have been started in with overeating, maybe a binge episode. And now my brain is much more clear. So it has made a big difference that way, that you're actually able to implement the tools that you learn mindfully without all the jumble of thoughts in your mind.
Clears the path, it sounds like, a bit more for consistency in your eating. Melissa?
Yeah, I agree with everything Sherry said. It becomes, so like I noticed actually the other day, I was bored and I was thinking like, what do I want? I'm like, wait a minute. you're not hungry. You don't need to eat anything. Okay, go about my day. Now, keep in mind though, if I had been on this and I had that thought and I had not worked with you guys and or in some way, shape, or form done similar work, I would not have known to ask myself that question in that moment, even being on a GLP-1. And that's why, so whenever I talk to people, and I don't remember who said it, I don't advertise it, but if you ask me, I'll talk about it with you. Absolutely. So when I talk to people, I am adamant about doing the mental work and what that means, what that looks like, to be able to say when you're having that emotion or you're feeling bored or you're just instinctively grabbing something, even though you don't need it, just say, wait a second, what? But what this does do is it makes it much more instinctive to just be like, wait, am I really hungry? No. Okay, done. Move on. Next. I'm going to go do whatever it is. Even if it's just sit on the couch and doom scroll on Instagram, I don't care. Like, I'm not reaching for the food, but and it goes back to what I said before. It's one tool in the toolkit, not the only one. You don't know what you don't know. So you have to know to do that mental work around all of the noise that you might still encounter when it shows up.
Just to add on to that, I think in my past and with the history that I had biologically turned off hunger and feelings of satiety. I remember spending months when it was don't eat until you're hungry. I could not recognize that situation. I would be hours in the morning and I'd be like, okay, I still don't feel hungry. I had turned those off in my system. I feel like the medication for me turned them back on. But now, same thing, because I had done that work, I knew what I was looking for. I knew I was looking for feelings of hunger and feelings of satisfaction when before I couldn't. I was tricking myself. I'd be like, I haven't eaten in 6 hours, so I should be hungry. But I physically did not know what that felt like. Now I know when I'm hungry and I'm able to recognize when I'm full, which those make a big deal. If you feel that naturally, that is fantastic. So until that's taken away and you didn't know you didn't have it, I think the tools that you have when you can recognize them, and just Melissa, you just said that. I was able to ask myself the right question because I had that in my toolbox to say, oh, okay, this is what hunger feels like. Okay, I can eat now. I am actually full. This is what it is. Because before, maybe you'll have a plate and I would say, okay, I need to eat 80% of this plate because then I will be satisfied. And I was trying to convince my body through my mind.
Even that is
was
eating
right.
from your mind, not your stomach. If we're thinking we have to eat 80% off of our plate, we're still dieting in a way. We still have this belief system that we're just eating from the plate instead of the body being the guide ultimately. And Macarena, I see you want to chime in here.
Yeah, no, it's just very interesting how Sherry has reconnected with her hunger with the medication, because I feel less hungry. And although I do feel hungry from time to time, it's not a daily thing that's happening to me right now. And I actually miss that feeling. I miss like the rumbling in my stomach and getting to identify like the signals. But what I have realized is that I do get satiated when I eat. So that's how I know, like, okay, I'm like, this is just enough, but I barely feel hungry anymore. So it's really interesting that she actually connected with that.
Yeah, I was definitely interested to hear that as well, because generally, from what my interpretations is, it tends to dull or blunt the hunger, and it's not nearly as prevalent or a strong sensation. So that's curious in and of itself. Steph, I'm going to invite you in here.
Yeah, I've got some comments. I've been taking some notes as y'all were talking, and I'll start from the back with the hunger sensation. I think that oftentimes without the medication and things of that nature, we're so used to convincing ourselves that we still need food because we aren't satisfied, even if we're satiated. There's a difference between physical physically satiated, eating enough food to get you to your next meal and just enough food to get you to your next meal versus I'm satisfied with how much I've eaten emotionally. And it's difficult to differentiate those things when you have a long dieting history like I do, like Sherry does. You really have to be tuned back in. And so even though this medication delays gastric emptying, meaning this food stays in your stomach longer than someone who is not taking the medication, it makes sense to me that it would reconnect you to your signals, because now we're no longer looking for that mental and emotional satisfaction from your meals in the same way, habitually in the same way like you were before, because the food is still just hanging out in your stomach, which also confirms what Maka is going through, where the food is being delayed in emptying. And so you may never get empty enough to get that hunger signal that's just roaring at you that you miss, right? And so there are a lot of things at play here from a biological level that make sense to me for both perspectives. I can see it from both perspectives. What I'm hearing, though, that I love hearing, and I want to make sure that our audience hears it too, is that all of you are experiencing emotional eating opportunities, even though you're on the medication. I'm bored. Let me get a little something. Oh, wait, no. I don't need anything, because so many people think this is, again, the magic pill. It's going to wipe all of that out. It's going to wipe out desire for food. You're going to be disgusted by food, all the things. And it's no, your brain still works, y'all. Like, your coping mechanisms still are there. They're still chiming in. The radio is still loud. But because y'all have been in this program, you've done the work, you were able to recognize that and go, no, I know what you are. I know what this is. So the medication doesn't stop you from emotionally overeating, which is why I think, Maka, as you said, your sister wasn't successful, because a lot of people try to hack the system just like they do with weight loss surgery. It literally shrinks your stomach. You cannot eat your face off with weight loss surgery. And yet we find ways to continue to eat our face off little by little by little all day long as the stomach re-stretches and we hack the system. And now we're back up. The 100 pounds we lost is suddenly found. Yeah, I think it's so important to highlight all of the little ways that the medication can be so helpful, but also you are still a whole ass human with a human brain. As Leslie said, you don't get a brain transplant just because you're on the medication. You still have to be onto yourself.
Yes, I want to mention something like, yes, I do still get emotionally eating opportunities, but it's really interesting that I was traveling. I just got back last month, and I was having so much fun that I actually, like, I ate very little during this trip, like once or twice a day. I was like really having fun. I was into my life at the moment. And that made me think, wow, this sentence that Leslie always says, if the best part of your day is a chocolate, you won't give up the chocolate. And I have been thinking so much about it, like, how much of my life am I actually enjoying? So after I came back from my travels, I've been focusing so much on having fun and enjoying what makes me happy, because if not, I do think that eating, I don't know, the damn chocolate is fun, but I don't want to have fun in that way. So my alternatives for having fun, for dealing with my boredom or whatever I might be feeling is so different right now. But just because I actually got to experience during the trip that I had so much fun that I didn't care about eating, and I actually cared about having fun.
I mean, that's exactly it, right? I know which post you're talking about on Instagram. I can't find the exact language, but the concept, the idea is we don't really want the chocolate as much as we want our lives to be the chocolate, right? If we have a rich, rewarding, fulfilling life, then we're not thinking about snacking all the time, or ultimately our emotional cup has been filled. So we're not looking to fill the void with popcorn or French fries for some people. Steph, I want to talk briefly just about the body image component, because all of you are obviously on these weight loss medications, and I imagine it might be helpful for context to understand what the weight loss has actually looked like for each one of you since starting it, and how that has affected your body image, or how you've been able to manage your mind and expectations a bit, because how much scale stepping are we doing? I guess I'm just curious, what does the weight loss look like and how is it affecting your body image?
I think to offer some clarity, if you were on these medications and losing weight before, would you be scale stepping and body checking and doing all of the things differently than you are now that you've done some body image work? You have a different relationship with your body. You all have been through the program, and the program always highlights body image as an important aspect of your relationship with food, your body, all the things. And so are we walking by the mirror and lifting up our shirt and did I lose another pound yet? Did I lose another pound yet? Did I lose another pound yet? Are we pinching and pulling and tugging the way we did weight loss through dieting? Or do you feel like you are in right relationship with your body right now in a different way?
Oh, no, if you put it that way. No, but seriously, I still go out of my way to not weigh myself every day because I don't think that's productive. I know that I fluctuate too much even when I'm consuming my version of a healthy diet and feeling good. I just know there's too much fluctuation. I don't need to play that mind game with myself. I'm good. The progress of weight loss has, like Sherry said, has still been slow for me. I've always been a slow loser. I'm going to be a slow loser. I'd rather be a slow loser and know that I have a much greater chance of keeping it off for the long term. I'm good with that. I've absolutely made my peace with that. Is there a part of me that wishes it would go a little faster? Of course, but not enough where I'm like, I'm not trying to make this into a diet because I know that's not going to work. And by the way, I think that people who still continue diet behaviors on this, the measuring, the counting, eating as little as possible, you're just another diet pill then. Don't expect anything different. But I think the same thing applies to how you look at the scale and how you view yourself. If you are always checking your weight every day, it's diet behavior. I always looked in the mirror before, whether I was heavy or not. I'm just like that. But when I do see the changes, yeah, but to me, that's, oh, what else is going to be different today? How is this journey going to continue? How am I going to feel each day when I feel like I'm retaining a little water or when I'm not? Because it's all, even in just the more progress I've made in the last couple of weeks, there's already a shift. And it's, oh, so what's next? What's next? I feel like I'm learning even more as I go about what it feels like to do this the right way and to feel good and to feel healthy. Yeah.
Sherry, I'd love to get your perspective on this as well.
I do agree. So many wonderful things have been said, and that I like to fill my cup with all that information. I am definitely an information seeker. I will say that body image, self-worth, how I feel about myself is a work in progress. And it's something I've been working on since I started working with you guys, and probably a little bit before that, because I do have a tendency to check myself in a mirror and go back and forth. But I do feel I've made huge progress in the last 4 years, 2 years before taking this medication, and then in the last 18 months that I have been. I had already stepped away from weighing consistently, and now I need to weigh every week. That's part of what I'm supposed to do, just to make sure that my dose is not too high and that I am doing the right thing. But I find that because I had taken that away as a diet behavior, I don't feel the need to do that. So it has to be built into my week. This would not have happened prior to the psychological tools that I gained, and prior to taking this medicine. I would have been weighing every day, or sometimes twice a day, just depending on what it was, and making sure that, oh, did I eat too big of a lunch? That has made a big difference. So over this course of time, you will hear there are fantastical stories on the internet, on the news. They always highlight these, oh my goodness, the Ozempic craze, and she lost 100 pounds in 6 months. I think those are just like any sensationalized news. They're going to go for the big tickets. That's the one, the headlines at the checkout at the store that says, look what I did. And that has not been my experience. I have lost 30 pounds. 30.2, just because I have to keep those numbers. That's not a huge amount of weight. I'm not going to make any headline. I'm not going to sell tabloids at the grocery store, but it makes me feel so wonderful. So even if I look and I'm like, oh, I'm not where I need to be, but I feel good. I recognize that feeling that I guess I was chasing before, and it just wasn't happening. And maybe because it was that psychological clutter in my brain that had to do with food and size and all of the above. Yeah, so mine is I'm slow, but I feel really good about where I am and where it's going.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it is recognizing that this is a process and it doesn't need to be an overnight success story, so to speak, because the way you lose it is the way that you have to live it, to quote Steph. And the reality is we don't want this to be just another short-term temporary fix. What are we actually learning when we do things rapidly in that way? Not a whole lot about ourselves or about our body. And so I appreciate the feedback also on the body image piece, because we are socialized beings. We do want to feel good in our skin. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with having a little vanity here and there and ultimately wanting to present the best version of ourselves, whatever that may look like. It's just, is our self-worth, is our self-esteem hinging on it? Do we change our perception of ourselves in these big fluctuations based off, like, how consistently are we having bad body image days, I guess, is one way to think of it. Macarena?
I think it's really interesting that the three of us are standing from different streets, because I do weigh myself daily. When I decided to start again the weight loss, whatever that happened in October, but I decided I needed to desensitize myself to the number, because I was so scared of seeing a number in the scale, even though I wasn't weighing myself. So I decided to expose myself to that. Like when you see the same number, like your height, when you see your blood pressure, when you see like the blood sugar, like whatever, I wanted to treat it like a number, just as those. So I started weighing myself daily so I could get data. And I can get, and I still do it, but it's really interesting because it has made me face my fears in terms of, I don't know, if I eat something like heavier than I previously, like when I'm all scared, like to wait, and then I see it still went down, or I did quote unquote all good the day before and I weighed myself and still the same, or it's even like a little higher. So having that data to contrast has been really good for me, as it doesn't feel diety, but in terms of it lets me see my progress. And the app that I use, like it actually makes like this line to see the trend line. So it's really nice to see like how the fluctuations are in between the line. That's one point I wanted to touch, because I really felt really like a challenger person to do that and do what I wasn't told to do. I needed some kind of mental cleanse to actually do that with peace of mind. So just in case any listener might be interested in doing the wrong thing and try waiting or whatever, do it on their own terms. That's what I needed. And regarding the body image, I do check myself. I haven't got rid of that habit, but I have made different the way I face that. For example, if I like look at myself and I like, oh, that belly, but it's, oh, that's the belly you've got. It doesn't matter how it looks. It's your belly. It's protecting your organs. It's like the body you've developed. Like you have 30 years in this earth and this is how you look like. And I have turned that view, because I like to flirt with myself in the mirror anyway. So I'm still will be looking at myself, but I have changed how I face that.
Steph?
Yeah, so a few things as it relates to the scale. Jumping on and off the scale is diety, no matter what your energy is coming from it for the most part, just because people who aren't trying to lose weight are not really getting on the scale very often. Maybe at their doctor's appointment once a year, maybe because they're curious because they're a bunch of teenage boys or something, but they're not jumping on and monitoring. So it is diety, but that doesn't make it wrong. Right? We are trying to lose weight, therefore we are using it as one marker. And the important piece of this as it relates to body image and things like that is what Leslie highlighted. How is this affecting your self-worth? It does your self-worth and your mood hang in the balance of the number on the scale. If it does, we have a poor relationship with it that needs to be worked on, or possibly removing it, or possibly doing it more. There are more ways than one to do this kind of work. But I just wanted to highlight that anytime we are monitoring, whether that's monitoring our body, monitoring the way we look, monitoring our weight, whatever, it is quote unquote diety, but that's not necessarily a bad thing until you hang your self-worth and self-esteem on it. Now we have a problem. Same thing with body checking. I think it's important to look at your body. In fact, in the body image work, I have y'all strip down and take a good old fashioned hard look at this body that you have and spend some time with it. Stop being so damn afraid of your human body that is going to change and evolve. We are all growing, aging, changing, whatever. So I think that's okay too, especially when you're working on some things like this. And it's, hey, I do want to see my progress. I do want to see what's changing. It's novel to the brain. The brain is automatically going to have you looking for the result that you're technically working toward, right? So I think, again, all of that is such a nuanced conversation that circles back around to, is it unhealthy? Yes or no? Depends. How are you talking to yourself about it? If it doesn't look good one day or it doesn't look right one day, are you actually seeing an accurate picture of yourself? And are you being kind to yourself through this process? Or does it affect your mood, your relationships, the way that your internal environment is feeling and things of that nature? So from a body image standpoint, that's where my brain goes, is not necessarily the behaviors in and of themselves, although they can be a hint toward where your mindset is. But I really just want to know where your mindset is. How are we treating ourselves? What is the relationship with self like? And there's a difference between seeing your progress and being happy with it versus having your mood determined by what's in the mirror. And I will say that losing slowly, for the two of you who have mentioned that you're losing really slowly, I think that's pretty normal for someone who was eating sensibly. Even if you all weren't perfect in the habits, or now you're eating less and it's allowing you to lose weight, you still were working on the habits. You were still intentional about your eating behaviors. Whereas somebody who, I don't know, is eating all the things all the time, every environmental cue, every emotional cue, everything going on, that might be a more drastic change in the beginning than someone who has some pretty good habits already, but like now we just got a little boost. So quote unquote, slowly, sensibly is sensible. It's the right way to go about it in a lot of ways, not for everyone. Again, this is not a binary statement of yes or no, right or wrong, but it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I appreciate the perspective with the body image piece. To me, again, is it like, are we sitting on the sidelines of our lives, or are we getting in the game? Because negative body image thoughts are going to surface no matter who you are. That's never going to go away. It's just, how are you handling them when they do come up? Are we allowing it to ruin our day? Is it preventing us from following through with the things in our life that are important to us? So I appreciate you adding to that conversation, Steph. Let's go ahead and just talk about the long-term plan, because some people are going to stay on it forever, and that's totally cool. Just like maybe somebody with thyroid medication might need to, or whatever the case may be. And so I'm curious for you all and your perspective. It might be a premature question. Maybe you haven't really thought about it, or you'll make a game time decision when you get to that point. And Macarena, your situation's unique because of the PCOS element, which of course affects you hormonally and as well. So I'm just curious for each one of you, where do you see yourselves going with this medication? Is it just getting to your ideal weight and then maintaining it on a lower dosage? Do you want to come off of it? Or maybe you just don't know yet and you'll make your decision when you get to that point. Let's start with you, Macarena.
I personally think that I will stop having it sometime in the future. I don't know. I do have my fears. I gotta be honest, and a part of me is, but how will my eating habits develop without the Ozempic? But right now, I'm trusting the process. I'm trusting my knowledge. I was going to say my gut, but I think that was a little bit punny. But I don't know. I don't know how it will develop. I do think that what I've been working on and all the efforts that I've been doing, whether it's like facing the fears, using the tool I already have, catching up with myself and maybe journaling or seeing how I'm feeling, stuff like that will help me in the future. But I don't know for sure how that will develop.
Yeah, I think that's a fair response. And also, what is your doctor recommending, right? What's their vision for you? We can't really look into a crystal ball, but I appreciate the honesty about fear. And I think that's legitimate. I think that's probably how a lot of people in your position would feel coming off of it. Melissa?
I've thought about it and I don't have my answer yet. I'm also insulin resistant. I was never actually diagnosed with PCOS, but there has been recent suspicion that's probably what I've had for many years. And Dr. Mary Claire Haver was on Andrew Huberman's podcast, and she said, I'll probably die with my estradiol patch on. And I know I will die with my estradiol patch on, but I may or may not feel the same way about peptides. I want to get to where I want to be health-wise before I would make that decision. Now, with that said, am I open to always having to be on it? Of course, if that's what I need, if that's what's going to work for me, if that's what's going to keep me healthy and give me all the other health benefits from it, along with my diet and my lifestyle, sure, no problem. And if there's an opportunity for me to not be on it my whole life, great. I'm not married to either avenue, and I'll see how it goes as I get through this and what I really need and what I don't need. My preference always is to be as, natural as possible, but that's not always possible. So
Yeah, fair point. And Sherry?
I think I'm going to echo both ladies who just preceded me. I agree with everything they just said. And I think just as women, as human beings, we're all so different. We need to approach our health and our lives with that unique spirit of who we are and what we need. As of right now, I feel really good. I have mental clarity. My health numbers are all good. Hormone numbers that I've been testing for a while. So I'm at a point now where I am entering menopause, and I have been in perimenopause for decades. I probably had PCOS, and that just wasn't something that was diagnosed at the time. Insulin resistant. I'm not ashamed to also take hormones that are also going to balance out. We talked about what you need for yourself because we're all so unique and individualized. So I'm open to all the options. If I need to take this for the long term, maybe there'll be a reduction in dosage, maybe not. If I can come off, that may be great too, but I don't really, I guess I'll just, I'll go where it takes me. I do agree. And I think I probably spent, and thinking about it over the last few years, I probably did spend quite a bit of my life on the sidelines cheering other people on because that's my personality. I'm so excited for them, but also trying to maybe dim my light because of shame and guilt related to my size. I think things over the last few years have changed. So I'm very glad I did the mental work, and I'm very glad that I have now found this piece to help my life, not just my health. I want to live in a strong, healthy body with a mind that is clear in the process of living a beautiful life. And this just happens to be where I am right now. So if it's for the long haul, that's okay. And if it's not, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Leslie, remember too, this class of medication, GLP-1s, will continue to evolve. There's
Sure.
already so much money being poured into research. We'll probably look back on these drugs and laugh at them a little bit the way they are now with the side effects I personally haven't experienced, but that people experience. So I think that's something else to add into that long-term decision is, as they evolve, how are they evolving? How will they benefit? And will they continue to be benefit to consider being on them long term? But that's a factor as well.
For sure. And I also think before we know it, there'll be over-the-counter drugs likely. And I don't know how closely you'll be monitored by a physician. This can go in so many different directions, right? I love that we're getting into the conversation at this early stage. We just want to continue informing ourselves. But one final question I do have for each of you is, what do you feel is most misunderstood about being on a weight loss drug? What do you see that gets under your skin and you're like, that hasn't been my experience? Or what do you feel like people need to know about it?
There is so much misinformation
Okay.
about peptides and about GLP-1 specifically. There's so much propaganda out there that is just mind-bogglingly wrong. And I think even if you're one of these people who thinks that taking one of these is the easy way out and you're going to get on social media and comment like it's your job, for God's sakes, at least go read a couple of studies and learn something. Because a lot of stuff that's out there is just wrong. It doesn't cause muscle loss. Anytime you lose weight at a fast pace on any diet, You are going to lose muscle if you are not actively putting on a slab of muscle on your body by lifting weights. That's not the GLP-1s. The way they work, they don't cause the muscles to reduce. And that's just one of the many things out there. So that I think is the most frustrating. I think I'm getting worked up over it. The most frustrating thing for me. There are plenty of physicians on Instagram and social media who are showing like the images of the studies that are out there that show all of the benefits, not just weight loss, for GLP-1s and other peptides as well, which people have been using for decades. I can't change someone's belief that this is an easy way out or not. I know it's not. That's all I care about. I say, if you are not sure or you're just taking in the propaganda, go read some studies, go do some research. If you're unsure if you want to take it, go read the studies, go do some research, talk to people who are on it, because there are probably more people in your life who are on it than you realize. And I would also say the other frustrating thing for me is what we've touched on already. If you're treating this like another diet, it's going to be another diet. And how many diets have been successful for you? You can't treat it like another diet. You have to use this as your tool to do the work, to create better habits, to get your mind to make better choices for yourself, whatever that looks like for you, because it will end up being just another diet if you don't do that.
So
Down to my soapbox now.
Maka, what about you, girl?
I want to add to Melissa's myth, the myth that Melissa shared. I was also told that I was going to get wrinkly and look ugly, not uglier, older, because it makes you like this Ozempic face and whatever, and that you just like your skin basically melts down. That's just coming from a place of ignorance. I've been told so much lately that I look so much younger. My mom even said I look like a teenager now, and I actually felt insulted by it because I'm a grown-ass woman. But aside from that, the same that Melissa points out, it's not only for losing weight. For me, it has given me health in terms of my menstrual cycle has gotten more regular because of it. I'm getting my period because I was in this point that I wasn't getting my period like in 2 or 3 months, and just because for the sake of, I don't know, insulins, yeah, whatever. But my periods are now regular. I feel lighter. I haven't gotten my blood tests done, but I want to be a mom someday. And this is also like lowering my chances of getting diabetes while being pregnant, diabetes in the future too, because my doctor also told me when she suggested the medication that I was like pre-diabetic for a little bit, but now I think I'm not. It has given me health in terms that I wasn't sure that I would get. And that has made me feel better just because I feel healthier, I feel more capable. With that has also come that my resistance, like working out, is better. So I have been having so much fun. I don't know if life would be feeling as fun as it's feeling right now if I hadn't been shown the chances that Ozempic has given me.
Awesome. Thank you. Sherry, anything you wish people knew about these weight loss drugs, or something that's frustrating you that you wish the public at large understood?
And I do think a lot of it is that sensationalized. We talked about the tabloid headlines and what they see: Ozempic face, Ozempic butt, the wrinkles, muscle loss. Somehow you're stealing medication from somebody who might really need it. All of those things just come from a place. I had a family member who posted online just a very shaming response of, anybody who's taking this is causing someone else to be without. And I thought, oh, okay, first of all, I don't think they knew that I was taking it, but they also, I can't say, they just came from a place of not knowing what the medication was being used for or how it was being prescribed. I know when I first started taking it, I actually had a physician who said, okay, I see what you've been doing. I see the blood testing results. You may want to consider weight loss surgery. For me and my lifestyle, that's not an option that I had. I can't do that in my life at this time. I can't not be able to move for several weeks or months, depending on what had to be done. So this was another option. I don't think that would have been the easy way out. And as the myth states, this is the easy way out. There is no easy way out. It's just part of life. And I think that is a myth that needs to be busted, because there are so many people saying, first of all, I can tell because you're going to be flabby and you're going to be wrinkly and you're taking medication from people who really need it. All of the above, when it is just out of a lack of knowledge. Yeah, I hope not. You can see I really hope none of y'all think I'm
Like,
really
aren't we
wrinkly
all
since I've
going to
been
be
taking this
old
for-
and wrinkly? And of course, if somebody loses weight, you're going to look a bit more gaunt than you did before, hence the Ozempic face narrative. And people have different skin elasticity. It's not, anyway, I'm not going to get on my soapbox, Melissa, but I hear y'all, Sherry, and loud and clear. Yeah, relatable. So I can totally sympathize with the frustration there. And I feel like we've been saying the same thing about diets, essentially, with the overnight success stories, the tabloid, the rapid weight loss, and how unrealistic that really is.
This is just like a little information, but the studies are showing that Ozempic has also been helping with health, heart health, and also with addiction, like it lowers
The cravings for
so-
nicotine and alcohol is what I read.
Yeah, and even drugs. It's probably something that's going to stay for a while because it's getting all these benefits that are showing, and they will probably find a little bit more. Yeah, Ozempic will probably be here for weight loss and other stuff too in the future.
I have a few comments, and one of them being about the sort of long-term plans, people staying long-term or not staying long-term. And I also the option of not being on it for a while and then maybe needing a touch-up for a time or something like that as an option. I've seen and heard a lot of different things all over the place. And I think it comes back to the conversation around habits, what you're learning, what you're doing. I've seen people that are like, I'm on the medication now, so I decided to also water fast and I ended up in the hospital. I'm like, that sounds like stupid plus stupid equals dumb. Like, maybe we shouldn't do that. Possibly. I understand the desperation. So people are doing some desperate things, thinking like, hey, I'm not hungry. I don't have the food noise. Might as well take advantage, not understanding human biology. So the slingshot effect that comes with extreme dieting is right around the corner for you, if that's the way you go about things. But if we are thinking about set point and settling point, once you have your habits in place and your body kind of adapts to this smaller size and it has the support, there is a chance that people can get off of it and have the habits remain reasonably in place. Maybe not. It just depends. I think that it's worth a conversation. It'll be interesting to see over time. But as far as the muscle loss, the Ozempic face, all of those kinds of things, I just want to briefly comment because Melissa, you nailed it with any rapid weight loss is going to have those same side effects. And anybody who knows anything about anything when it comes to this kind of stuff, when it comes to muscle gain, muscle loss, things like that. I think the bigger concern is that some people, again, are like, oh, well, I don't have an appetite. I'm not going to eat at all. So now we're not eating according to what we actually need. Protein happens to be pretty satiating. So when you already don't have an appetite, the last thing you're going to want to eat is a big old bowl of shredded chicken, probably, to maintain your muscles. So there is a risk of losing muscle and losing that tissue in your face and the elasticity and looking older and having crepey, wrinkly, saggy skin and things like that if you rapidly lose weight. But that's not the medication in and of itself. We're just seeing a high amount of it because of the amount of people that are on the medication losing weight very rapidly, probably because they're all of a sudden forgetting to eat for days at a time and deciding to water fast and do all sorts of nonsensical things. So if you have strong habits, my point is, this points you back to, if you have strong health promoting, I give a shit about myself habits, your chances of experiencing all of those things go way, way down because you're in right relationship with yourself, your body, your food, all the things. Do the mental work, y'all. Do the mental work for all of you who are listening. These ladies did the mental work and they are looking youthful and glowy and having great success.
You're not wrong. It does come back to our inner psychology, in my opinion, at the end of the day, because you all could still be sitting in a negative state of mind, picking yourselves apart, upset that it's not happening fast enough, comparing yourself to other people's Ozempic stories, or on and on. But I think having habits and the clarity, the language, the framework of a program like Unstuffed, and recognizing, because I can't tell you how many clients we talked to on day one who have no concept or idea of what a healthy relationship with food even looks like, because they didn't grow up in an environment or a home where that was modeled to them. And so it is helpful to have a framework in which you understand hunger and fullness cues, and learn that there's nothing wrong with eating the occasional slice of cake and not feeling guilty for it, and being able to do that in a way that feels balanced alongside your entire library of food options. And so even people who are on Ozempic, yes, of course, your appetite's going to be less, but there can still be a lot of the emotional food guilt and shame around body image that you all have essentially, hopefully, through the program learned to have in your toolbox in a way that feels sustainable, that feels good, that you're not hating yourself the entire way to your weight loss goal. And Macarena, as you explained it, life feels exciting. Life feels good. And that should be how we feel on a regular basis, ideally. So I'm curious if anybody has any last thoughts before we wrap up today's episode.
I have a
Melissa?
couple. Yeah, I will say, since I switched to the Zepbound and I added in the right HRT cocktail for me, I feel like I'm coming out of a fog. It's the best way to explain it. And this is what made me think of it when you just talk about enjoying life and whatnot. I still have a kind of relatively boring life, all things considered, but one, I still enjoy it, but I feel like day to day, I feel like I could take on the world if I wanted to. If that was the choice I made that day. I usually just want to hang out and chill, but it really feels like I'm coming out of a fog. And I think the other thing too to keep in mind is, if you are always in that more negative body image space, that negative head space around, why am I failing? I'm always worried about the decisions I'm making in terms of my diet this, diet that, body this, I hate myself, whatever. You're never going to be set up to make the choices you want to make to be healthy. Whatever diet you choose to follow, whatever exercise you choose to do, if you're not going to be set up for success to put the slab of muscle on your body, to do things that will make you feel good every day. And that's where I think, Steph, like you said, and I've said to anyone who listen, do the mental work. If you do nothing else, at least do the mental work, because it will set you up for success for anything else you choose to do.
I wish we had another podcast episode to just talk about what the quote unquote mental work is, because I know anybody who's listening to this podcast and this is their first episode, they're like, what exactly does that even mean? I hope they go back and listen to some previously recorded episodes, because we definitely expand on that topic and theory at large.
That's what I was going to say, Leslie. It's what you two offer. It's when you see their posts on Instagram and whatever other channels you're on, and they talk about body image and habits. And when I say getting your mind right and getting out of all of that old diet culture thinking, it's that. And do not underestimate the work that it takes, but it is so worth it. When I see every now and then I'll send you an Instagram post, Leslie, with, hey, check out this comment section. It's a whole bunch of clients waiting for you. But we see it all the time out there. And it's just, yeah, the mental work is what they're preaching, what they tell you to do in their programs. It's that.
All right. Thanks, Melissa.
I just think that this was a really helpful conversation. It touched on a lot of little areas that a lot of people have questions about, concerns about. This is a topic that's not going away. I think we could probably do part 2, 3, 4, 5, and 12, honestly. And I think we probably over time will do more or have more conversations around this, because we're just going to continue to learn. I know Leslie and I are both committed to staying open and learning more about this because we're not foolish. There is no easy way out. But let me just tell you, weight loss should not have to be people's full-time job. I have spent my entire life having every single thought around food and body and what I looked like and what I was eating and all the things. And so if it's the easy way out, I don't give a flying shit. Let it be easy. For hell's sakes, it's hard enough. Why do we have to make it hard? Why? If it's easier, let it be easier. If it helps people, let it help people. I know there are downsides. I know there are risks. I know it's not for everyone. And with the whole, you're taking this medication away from people, come on. The medication is not scarce. The applicators, the injectors were what was actually scarce. That is a distribution problem. That isn't a medication problem. They're getting better. And they're even talking about it being a pill someday. I don't want to be the champion for semaglutide, but I'm not going to shit on it either because life just shouldn't be this damn hard. Not when it's something we have to do every single day over and over again. Eat. Let's just take care of our emotions and things like that instead and not have to worry so much about the food. It's just my thoughts.
And to piggyback off of that, it should also not be a lifelong pursuit, y'all. We should not be dieting for 50 years, right? There should be a path of ideally one and done. And I'm with you, Steph. I would have been the first person in line. Are you kidding me? As soon as Ozempic came on the market, I would have been like elbowing nuns and women with small children to get to the door. So no shade whatsoever. I totally get it. Fortunately, I'm in a position now where I don't need it, but I would have been on the train immediately. And so we want to remain open-minded and continue to learn and evolve as the medication does. So we thank you, ladies, so much for coming on, sharing your experience. And I look forward to having you come back with an update, maybe 6 months, a year from now, and see where you're at and the way things have unfolded in that period of time, because I think that would also be really valuable insight as well. So thanks to our listeners for tuning in. I hope you found today's episode useful, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye, y'all.